Hello, good morning, children. In the previous class, I have explained the part 1 of the Mughal Empire, class 7, history, 4th chapter. Okay, Humayun, Babur, Humayun, and Akbar. Till there, these three kings, about them you have learned. Now, let's see about, and at last you have got that Akbar got rebellion from his own son Salim, that's it, none other than Jahangir. Now, let's know about this Jahangir. Okay, Jahangir. Okay, see. His reign time 1605 to 1627. That means nearly 22 years he ruled. Military campaign started by Akbar continued. The Sisodia ruler of Mewar, Amar Singh, accepted Mughal service. So, during the time of Jahangir, here Sisodia ruler, who was Sisodia ruler, Mewar ruler of Mewar? Amar Singh. Mewar ruler, Amar Singh accepted the ruling of Amar Singh. Accepted the rule of Jahangir. Okay, next step. Less successful campaigns against the Sikhs, the Ahoms and Ahmadnagar followed. Again, as Akbar had captured all these, what are the states campaigns? Sikhs, Ahoms and Ahmadnagar. Here, during the reign of Jahangir also, the same campaigns followed. But less successful campaigns. That means he was not that much capable like his father. Prince Khurram, the future Emperor Shah Jahan, rebelled in the last years of his reign. So, at last, what Jahangir, as Prince Salim, what he did, he also faced the same situation with his own son, Prince Khurram. Okay. He was none other than Shah Jahan. The efforts of Nur Jahan, Jahangir's wife, to marginalize him were unsuccessful. So, here Jahangir's wife, Nur Jahan, tried to solve the problem. Nur Jahan. Okay. Jahangir's wife, Nur Jahan, she tried to solve the problems between Jahangir and Shah Jahan. But these were unsuccessful. These efforts were unsuccessful. So, this is about Jahangir. What? His reign time 1605 to 1627. So, during the reign of Jahangir, Mewar's king Amar Singh accepted the rule of Jahangir, and less successful campaigns on the Sikhs, Ahoms and Ahmadnagar followed. And at the same time, at last, his son, Prince Khurram, none other than Shah Jahan, he started revolt, he started rebellion against his father, Jahangir. Here, Jahangir's wife, Nur Jahan, tried to convince both of them, but her efforts were unsuccessful. Now, let's see about this Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan. His time was 1627 to 1658. 1627 to 1658. Mughal campaigns continued in the Deccan under Shah Jahan. Mughal campaigns continued in the Deccan side under Shah Jahan. The Afghan noble Khan Jahan Lodi rebelled and was defeated. Here, Afghan ruler Khan Jahan, he was rebelled and he was defeated in the hands of Shah Jahan. Campaigns were launched against Ahmadnagar, but Bundelas were defeated and Orcha seized. Okay, so he also went with his campaigns and then to capture Ahmadnagar, and the Bundelas were defeated. Ahmadnagar, by the time Bundelas were the rulers and they were defeated and captured, and Orcha, their kingdom Orcha also was seized. In the northwest, the campaign to seize Balkh from the Uzbeks was unsuccessful and Kandahar was lost to the Safavids. So, here his grandfather, Akbar's time, Akbar captured all these places. What are they? Northwest, Uzbeks and Kandahar, all these. But during his time, he was unable to get control on them, so he defeated in those battles. So the campaign to seize Balkh from Uzbeks was unsuccessful, and Kandahar was also lost to the Safavids. That means Safavids, they captured Kandahar. In 1632, Ahmednagar was finally annexed and the Bijapur forces sued for peace. Okay, in 1632, what it happened? In 1632, Ahmednagar was finally annexed. So, again in 1632, he wanted to capture Ahmednagar. Then, in his attempt, he got success by capturing Ahmednagar. And the Bijapur forces sued for peace, and the Bijapur kingdom also, what they have done, they have come for peace. That means for compromise. For compromise, they have come, and Bijapur forces sued for peace. In 1657 and 1658, there was conflict over succession among Shah Jahan's sons. So, here you have to see 1657 to 1658. Okay, during these years, there was a fight against the sons of these Shah Jahans. Shah Jahan has 4 sons. Aurangzeb was victorious and his 3 brothers, including Dara Shikoh, were killed. So, among those 4, Aurangzeb, okay, he got the throne, and remaining 3 brothers, they were killed. Who killed? None other than this Aurangzeb only killed. Dara Shikoh. Actually, Dara Shikoh was the first, the elder son. Dara Shikoh. Okay, Dara Shikoh, he was the elder son to Shah Jahan, but in the hands of Aurangzeb, remaining all those 4, among 4 of them, there was a conflict to get the throne. So, Aurangzeb killed all the remaining 3 brothers. Shah Jahan was imprisoned for the rest of his life in Agra. So, after killing all his 3 brothers, he imprisoned his own father Shah Jahan. Okay, who? Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb imprisoned Shah Jahan, and later he completed his life in the prison of that Agra jail only. Okay. Shah Jahan was imprisoned for the rest of his life in Agra. So, here you see children, own son Shah Jahan. Okay, Shah Jahan's own son, there was a conflict among his 4 sons, and Aurangzeb, by killing 3 brothers, he got the throne. That means he became the king. And at last, Aurangzeb, what he has done with his father, he imprisoned Shah Jahan in Agra. Okay. So, that was Aurangzeb. Next, Aurangzeb. Now, see, Aurangzeb's reign time, what he has done. Next one, Aurangzeb. Okay. Aurangzeb, his reign time was 1658 to 1707. Okay. I think nearly he has ruled about 40 years. Okay. 42 years. In the northeast, the Ahoms, 49 years. The Ahoms were defeated in 1663 but rebelled again in the 1680s. Campaigns in the northwest against the Yusufzai and the Sikhs were temporarily successful. Mughal intervention in the succession and internal politics of the Rathore Rajputs of Marwar led to their rebellion. So, here also during the Aurangzeb's time also, he also led to campaigns. Okay, so 6 were temporarily successful. That means he captured 6 kingdom that was only temporary. And then northwest also, campaigns in the northwest against the Yusuf Jai. Yusuf Jai was the king in the place of northwest side. So that also he got temporary successful. That means here temporarily successful means only for short period of time only he was able to get those kingdoms. Later again they done battle and they got like that. That is temporarily successful. Mughal intervention in the succession and internal politics of the Rathore Rajputs of Marwar led to their rebellion. Campaigns against the Maratha chieftain Shivaji were initially successful. So during in his reign time only, Aurangzeb, he went to occupy that Maratha kingdom and he went to fight with Maratha chief Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji. You know the name of the king? Okay. That were initially successful only. But Aurangzeb insulted Shivaji, who escaped from Agra, declared himself an independent king and resumed his campaigns against the Mughals. That means what it happened, Aurangzeb captured Shivaji, but Shivaji escaped from Agra. And he declared himself as the independent king to that Maratha kingdom. And he started campaign against Mughals. Prince Akbar rebelled against Aurangzeb and received support from the Marathas and the Deccan Sultanate. So here Aurangzeb's son Akbar, Aurangzeb's son also Akbar, he got support with from the Marathas and Deccan Sultanate. Okay, so Aurangzeb's son Akbar also again he started rebellion on his own father and he got support from the Marathas and the Deccan Sultanate to fight with his own father Aurangzeb. He finally fled to Safavid Iran, but he was unable. That's why Akbar finally fled to Safavid Iran. He flew to Iran. Next, after Akbar's rebellion, Aurangzeb sent armies against the Deccan Sultanate. So, as these fellows, Deccan Sultanate, they supported this Akbar, Aurangzeb, what he has done? He sent his armies to capture Deccan Sultanate. Bijapur was annexed in 1685. In 1685, he captured Bijapur. And Golconda in 1687. In 1687, because why he has that much revenge? Because they supported his son and he only himself rebelled with his own father. That's why in 1687 he captured Golconda. 85 Bijapur and 87 Golconda. From 1698, Aurangzeb personally managed campaigns in the Deccan against the Marathas, who started guerrilla warfare. Here, these Marathas were experts in guerrilla warfare. Marathas. Guerrilla warfare. That means hiding and attacking. Guerrilla warfare. So, to fight in this battle, he personally managed his campaigns. That means he was the leader to his military campaigns. Aurangzeb. To fight with, actually the emperors, what they will do, they will send their generals, military generals only, or ministers and his army force. But here, to fight with Marathas, Aurangzeb only entered into the battlefield. He himself personally managed the campaigns. Aurangzeb also had to face the rebellion in North India of the Sikhs, Jats and Satnamis in the northeast of the Ahoms, and in the Deccan of the Marathas. So, in the different three places, what are they? In North India from Sikhs and Jats, Sikhs, Jats and Satnamis, and in the northeast from Ahoms, he faced rebellion. His death was followed by a succession conflict among his sons. So, the same, how he killed his own brothers, like that, after, during his time also, Aurangzeb's sons also again, they got sons also, they fought for the throne, and in that conflict only, Aurangzeb also died. Succession conflict among his sons. Okay, next. So, these are the Mughal emperors. One more time. First of all, Humayun, Babur's son Humayun, Humayun's son Akbar, Akbar's son Jahangir, Jahangir's son Shah Jahan, Shah Jahan's son Aurangzeb, Aurangzeb's son again Akbar. Okay, but Akbar's reign they haven't given to us. Next, Mughal traditions of succession. Okay, Mughal traditions of succession. The Mughals did not believe in the rule of primogeniture, where the eldest son inherited his father's estate. Primogeniture means here the eldest son. Primogeniture. If a king dies, his elder son will become the king. Elder son will become the king. So, this is the system of primogeniture. But Mughals did not believe in this. What they will do? Who was capable, who was with all the skills and warfare techniques, the people, they have to get the kingdom with their ability. So, Mughals believe in it. So, they don't believe in primogeniture, where the eldest son inherited his father's estate. Instead, they followed the Mughal and Timurid custom of coparcenary inheritance, or a division of the inheritance amongst all the sons. Or otherwise, they believe if this much kingdom is there means 4 sons means 4 of them will equally get, or 3 people means they will share 3 parts, like that, equally, or otherwise sharing equally. In this only they will believe, but not the elder son only getting all the kingdom. Follow the highlighted passages in table 1 and note the evidence for rebellions by Mughal princes. Which do you think is a fair division of inheritance? So, till now we have learnt nearly 7 or 6 members. Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Shah Jahan, Jahangir, Aurangzeb, like that. Okay, so during all these kings, who was the best ruler in the Mughal kingdoms, Mughal dynasties? You have to note down. Which do you think is fairer division of inheritance, primogeniture or coparcenary? Or do you think primogeniture is good or coparcenary? That means sharing the kingdom equally among all the sons. Next, Mughal relations with other rulers. Take a look at table 1 once again. You will notice that the Mughal rulers campaigned constantly against rulers who refused to accept their authority. That means here Sikhs, Ahmadnagar, Rajputs, Marathas, like that. Continuously to capture those kingdoms, all the Mughal emperors, they have continued their military campaigns. Why? Because those kingdoms rulers, they are not accepting the authority of these Mughal emperors. That's why they continued their military campaigns. But as the Mughals became powerful, many other rulers also joined them voluntarily. But this Mughal kingdom, as they have a vast military army, but so many kings, what they have done, they voluntarily joined their kingdom in the Mughal kingdom. The Rajputs are a good example of this. Many of them married their daughters into Mughal families and received high positions. So Rajputs also, they compromised with the Mughals, and what they have done, they get married their daughters to the Mughal kings. That means Rajput daughters came as daughter-in-laws to Mughal kings. But many resisted as well. At the same time, some of them have given their daughters to get married to the Mughal kings, but many of them, they refused this tradition. The Sisodia Rajputs refused to accept Mughal authority for a long time. Once defeated, however, they were honorably treated by the Mughals, given their lands back as assignments. But here Mughals also, they are very good in ruling. After, of course, they captured these Rajput kingdoms, then also they have given back the kingdoms, and they appointed those kings as they accepted them as samantas, okay, and they have given their lands back as assignments. Assign means vatan jagir, okay, lands vatan, and land assignments vatan jagir. That means by getting income from that land, they can rule the kingdom, but the supremacy power will be under Mughal emperor only, like that. The careful balance between defeating but not humiliating their opponents enabled the Mughals to extend their influence over many kings and chieftains. But it was difficult to keep this balance all the time. Look at table 1 again. Note that Aurangzeb insulted Shivaji when he came to accept Mughal authority. So here I explained that when he captured Maratha kingdom, he brought Shivaji to Agra. But what he had done, Aurangzeb, he insulted Shivaji. That's why Shivaji escaped from Agra and he declared himself as king, and he led military campaigns against Aurangzeb. What was the consequence of this insult? So, after facing the insult from Aurangzeb, what Shivaji has done, we will see in the next class. I hope till now you understood, children. Thank you. Have a nice day.